There are moments in life when you realize the person you thought you knew best is hiding something darker than you ever imagined. For me, that moment came 3 weeks before my brother Ethan's wedding when his fiancée Sarah did the unthinkable. She reached out to our narcissistic mother, the woman we had spent years protecting ourselves from, and invited her back into our lives without asking. I should have seen the red flags earlier, but love makes us blind even when we are watching from the outside. Before we dive into this wild story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you are curious about how this all unraveled, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for my family. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. My father died when I was 10 years old and Ethan was 8. A heart attack took him suddenly one Tuesday morning while he was getting ready for work. I remember the sound of my mother screaming from their bedroom, a sound that still haunts me sometimes when I close my eyes. After the funeral, something shifted in our house. The woman who used to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs and read us bedtime stories every night disappeared. In her place stood Margaret, a stranger wearing my mother's face. At first, people told us she was grieving. They said, "Give her time, she will come back to herself." But months turned into years, and instead of healing, she became someone we barely recognized. Margaret started using guilt like a weapon. Whenever Ethan forgot to take out the trash or got a B on a test instead of an A, she would say things like, "Your father would be so disappointed in you." She would sit at the kitchen table with old photo albums, crying loudly enough for us to hear from our rooms, then act surprised when we came to check on her. "Oh, you boys do not care about me anyway," she would say, turning away dramatically. The worst part was how she controlled us with money. She would promise to pay for school trips or new shoes we desperately needed, then change her mind at the last second if we did not do exactly what she wanted. I remember Ethan crying in his room because he could not go to science camp with his friends. Margaret had promised to pay the deposit but pulled out because he had spent too much time at his friend's house that week, instead of keeping her company. When I turned 18, I knew I had to get out. I worked 2 jobs that summer, saving every penny until I could afford a small studio apartment across town. It was barely bigger than a closet, with a kitchen so tiny you could touch the refrigerator and stove at the same time, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I could breathe without walking on eggshells. The hardest part was leaving Ethan behind. He was only 16, still trapped in that house with her. I called him every single day. We would talk for hours about everything and nothing, and I could hear in his voice how much he was struggling. On his 18th birthday, I showed up at the house with my truck. "Pack your stuff," I told him. "You are coming to live with me." We found a 2-bedroom apartment together in a quiet neighborhood near the university, where I was taking night classes. It was not fancy, just a basic place with beige walls and carpet that had seen better days, but it was ours. We furnished it with secondhand furniture from thrift stores and learned to cook meals that did not come from a box. Most importantly, we learned what it felt like to live without constant manipulation and guilt trips. We did not cut Margaret off completely at first. We still showed up for Thanksgiving and Christmas, sitting through uncomfortable dinners, where she alternated between playing the victim and making passive-aggressive comments about how her sons had abandoned her. But we kept her at arm's length, never staying longer than necessary, never giving her enough access to hurt us again. Ethan met Sarah 2 years ago at the tech company where he worked as an IT specialist. She was in the marketing department, one of those people who seemed to light up every room she entered. The first time he brought her to our apartment for dinner, I could see why he had fallen for her. Sarah had this warm laugh that made you want to laugh along with her. She asked thoughtful questions about our work and hobbies, and she genuinely seemed to care about the answers. Over the months that followed, I watched their relationship blossom. Sarah would surprise Ethan at work with his favorite sandwiches. She remembered small details like how he preferred his coffee or which podcasts he enjoyed. When he had a rough day dealing with difficult clients, she would draw him a bath and order takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant. She seemed perfect in every way that mattered. After a year of dating, Ethan called me at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, practically shouting into the phone, "I did it, Jonah, I proposed, and she said yes." I could hear Sarah laughing in the background, and my heart swelled with happiness for them. My little brother, who had survived so much pain and dysfunction, had found someone who made him smile like that. He deserved every bit of joy coming his way. The wedding planning started immediately. Sarah had notebooks filled with ideas, Pinterest boards overflowing with inspiration, and a clear vision of their perfect day. Ethan went along with most of it, happy to let her make the decisions as long as he got to marry her at the end of it all. Everything seemed to be falling into place beautifully. Then, about 2 months before the wedding date, Sarah started asking questions about our family. At first, they seemed innocent enough. "What was your childhood like before your dad passed away?" she would ask over dinner. "Tell me more about your parents." Ethan answered, vaguely sharing happy memories of our father, but glossing over the difficult years with Margaret. But Sarah kept digging deeper. "Why do we never visit your mom?" she asked one evening while they were addressing wedding invitations. "Do not you think she should be involved in the wedding planning?" Ethan tried to explain gently that his relationship with our mother was complicated, that she had issues they needed to maintain distance from. Sarah nodded sympathetically and dropped the subject. I thought that was the end of it. A few weeks later, I stopped by their apartment to drop off some tools Ethan had borrowed. As I walked up to the door, I could hear raised voices inside. I knocked, and the conversation stopped abruptly. Ethan opened the door looking exhausted, and Sarah stood in the living room with her arms crossed. "Everything okay?" I asked, stepping inside. Sarah turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Jonah, can you help me understand why Ethan does not want his own mother at our wedding? Every child deserves to have their mother there on such an important day." I felt my stomach drop. "Sarah, it is not that simple," I started, but she cut me off. "I know you both had a difficult childhood after your father died, but people change. Maybe Margaret has changed too. Do not you think she deserves a second chance to be part of your lives?" Ethan sank onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. I sat down next to him and tried to explain to Sarah exactly what growing up with Margaret had been like. I told her about the manipulation, the guilt trips, the emotional abuse that had left scars we were still healing from. I explained how we had worked hard to build healthy boundaries, and how letting Margaret back in would undo years of progress. Sarah listened quietly, her expression softening. When I finished, she wiped her eyes and nodded. "I am sorry. I did not realize it was that serious. I just wanted Ethan to have a complete family at the wedding, but I understand now." She came over and hugged Ethan tightly. "We will do this your way, I promise." Ethan looked relieved, and I felt the tension drain from my shoulders. We spent the rest of the evening talking about happier things like their honeymoon plans and the new house they were hoping to buy. As I drove home that night, I felt grateful that Sarah seemed to understand. I believed we had cleared the air and could move forward without any more drama. I had no idea how wrong I was. 3 weeks before the wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I was at work halfway through a staff meeting when I glanced down and saw the message that made my blood run cold. "Hello, Jonah. I am so excited about Ethan's wedding. Sarah invited me and I cannot wait to see my boys again." It was Margaret. I excused myself from the meeting and immediately called Ethan. He answered on the first ring, his voice tight with stress. "You got a message too! What the hell is going on?" I asked, pacing in the empty conference room. "I do not know. I am looking at the same text right now. I had no idea Sarah contacted her." "Where is Sarah?" "At work. I already called her. She is coming home early so we can talk." I told him I would be there in 20 minutes and hung up. The drive to their apartment felt like it took hours instead of minutes. When I arrived, Sarah's car was already in the parking lot. I took the stairs 2 at a time and let myself in with the spare key Ethan had given me. They were in the living room, Sarah sitting on the edge of the couch, and Ethan standing by the window with his back to her. The tension in the room was suffocating. "I do not understand why you are so upset," Sarah was saying as I walked in. "I reached out to have coffee with her 2 weeks ago. She seemed lovely, Ethan. She cried when she talked about how much she missed you both." "You went behind my back," Ethan said, his voice dangerously quiet. "After everything I told you. After everything Jonah told you. You contacted her anyway." Sarah stood up, her own frustration evident. "I did it for you, for us. A wedding is about bringing families together, about healing old wounds. Your mother wants to make amends. She told me she has been in therapy, that she understands now how her grief affected her parenting." "That is what she told you," I interrupted, unable to stay silent. "Sarah, that is exactly what she does. She tells people what they want to hear. She manipulates them into feeling sorry for her." Sarah turned to me, her eyes flashing. Or maybe you and Ethan have built her up into this monster in your heads because it is easier than forgiving her. Have you considered that? The accusation hung in the air. Ethan finally turned from the window and I could see the pain on his face. Sarah, if you truly loved me, you would have respected my boundaries. You would have asked before doing something like this. I love you enough to want you to have a whole family, she shot back. Margaret was crying, Ethan. Real tears. She said she has spent years regretting how she treated you both. She wants to be at the wedding. She wants to be part of our lives. Is that really so terrible? Over the next hour, we went in circles. Sarah could not understand why we were so resistant to reconciliation. We could not make her see that Margaret's tears and apologies were just another form of manipulation. Finally, Ethan held up his hands. I need time to think, he said. This is too much right now. But time was something we did not have. Over the next few days, Margaret launched a full-scale campaign. She called both of our phones, constantly leaving voicemails about how much she loved us and how sorry she was. She sent long text messages filled with memories of our father, saying things like, "Your dad would want us to be a family again." She even had flowers delivered to Ethan's office with a card that read, "I know I was not perfect, but I am still your mother." Sarah, instead of supporting Ethan through this stress, seemed to side with Margaret. She really is trying, Sarah would say. I can see how genuine she is. Maybe you should give her a chance. I watched my brother become torn between the woman he loved and the brother who had always protected him. He was not sleeping well. He stopped eating regularly. The light that Sarah had brought into his life was dimming under the weight of this impossible situation. One night, about 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan called me at 2 a.m. "I cannot do this, Jonah," he said, his voice breaking. "I cannot marry someone who does not respect my boundaries. I cannot let Margaret back into my life. I just cannot." "Then do not," I told him. "Make the call that is right for you." The next morning, Ethan told Sarah he wanted to postpone the wedding. He needed time to figure things out to make sure they were on the same page about fundamental things like family boundaries and respect. Sarah did not take it well. "You are going to throw away our wedding because your brother is controlling you," she shouted. "Jonah has brainwashed you into thinking your mother is some kind of villain. He does not want you to have your own life." "That is not fair," Ethan said firmly. "Jonah has done nothing but support me. This is my decision, Sarah. Mine alone." Sarah grabbed her purse and keys. "Fine. Here is my decision. If you postpone this wedding, we are done. I am not going to sit around waiting while you figure out if you can handle having a normal family relationship." She paused at the door, giving him one last chance to change his mind. Ethan said nothing. Sarah left, slamming the door behind her. Within an hour, Ethan had sent out messages to the wedding guests, explaining that the wedding was canceled. He was professional about it, simply stating that he and Sarah had decided to part ways. He did not air their private issues or blame anyone publicly. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Ethan barely left the apartment. He called in sick to work and spent most of his time on the couch, staring at nothing. I came over every day bringing food he would not eat and trying to get him to talk about something, anything other than Sarah. Some days he would open up about how much he missed her, how he wondered if he had made a mistake. Other days he barely spoke at all. I kept reminding him that he had made the right choice. "Anyone who truly loves you would respect your boundaries," I told him over and over. "Sarah showed you who she is. She chose manipulation over trust. She chose your abusive mother over your well-being." Deep down, though, I could see Ethan struggling with doubt. Had he been too harsh? Should he have given Margaret another chance? Was I influencing him too much? These questions haunted him, and there was nothing I could say to make them go away. 3 weeks after the canceled wedding, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text message. He was at my apartment and we were watching a basketball game neither of us was really paying attention to. He looked at his phone and all the color drained from his face. "What is it?" I asked. He handed me the phone without a word. The message was from Sarah. "We need to talk. It is urgent. I am pregnant." The coffee shop Sarah chose for the meeting was crowded and noisy, which somehow made the conversation we were about to have feel even more surreal. Ethan and I arrived 15 minutes early and grabbed a table in the back corner. My brother looked like he had not slept in days, which was probably accurate. His hands shook slightly as he wrapped them around his coffee cup. Sarah walked in exactly on time, carrying a large purse and wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy outside. She slid into the seat across from Ethan, barely acknowledging my presence. From her purse, she pulled out a manila envelope and placed it on the table between them. "I did not want to tell you like this," she began, her voice soft and carefully controlled. "But I thought you deserved to know. I am 6 weeks pregnant." The timeline made sense. 6 weeks ago, they had still been together, still planning their wedding. Ethan's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then something that looked like resignation. "I have the test results here," Sarah continued, sliding the envelope toward him. "I know this is not how either of us planned things, but this baby exists, and it needs a father." Ethan opened the envelope with trembling fingers and pulled out a medical document confirming a positive pregnancy test, dated a week earlier. He stared at it for a long moment before looking up at her. "Why are you telling me this now? Because despite everything that happened between us, I believe you are a good person, Ethan. I think you deserve the chance to be part of this child's life." Something about the way she said it felt rehearsed, like she had practiced this conversation multiple times. I leaned forward slightly. "We should do a paternity test, just to make sure everyone is on the same page." Sarah's head snapped toward me, her expression shifting from vulnerable to defensive in an instant. "Are you accusing me of lying, of cheating? Nobody is accusing you of anything," Ethan said quickly, though I noticed he did not contradict my suggestion. "It is just a standard procedure. It protects everyone involved, including you and the baby." "If you do not trust me," Sarah said, her voice rising slightly, "then we have nothing to discuss. I will raise this child on my own, and you can live with the fact that you abandoned your own son or daughter." "That is not fair." Ethan started, but Sarah was already gathering her things. "Wait," I said. "You came here to tell him about the baby. Why would you refuse a simple test unless you have something to hide?" Sarah stood up, slinging her purse over her shoulder. Her eyes were bright with tears, but there was something calculating in her expression that I did not trust. "I will make this simple for you, Ethan. If you want to be part of this child's life, we get back together. We get married. And your mother becomes part of our family like I originally wanted. Those are my terms." "You are using a baby to manipulate him?" I asked, not bothering to hide my disbelief. "I am giving him a chance to be a father and have a real family," Sarah countered. "Your mother told me about how you both abandoned her. Maybe it is time to make things right. Maybe this baby is the opportunity to heal old wounds and move forward." Ethan sat frozen, staring at the test results in his hands. I could see the internal battle playing out on his face. If the baby was really his, did he have a moral obligation to try to make things work with Sarah? Could he live with himself if he walked away from his own child? "I need time," he finally said. "You have until Friday," Sarah replied. "After that, I am moving forward with my plans, with or without you." She walked out of the coffee shop, leaving us sitting there in stunned silence. Ethan looked at me with desperate eyes. "What do I do, Jonah?" I did not have a good answer for him. All I knew was that something about Sarah's story did not add up, and I was determined to find out what it was. That night, I started digging. I pulled up Sarah's social media profiles and started going through her friends list looking for anyone who might give me insight into her life. I found Jessica, a woman who had worked with Sarah at her previous company. According to her profile, they had been close at one point. I sent Jessica a direct message explaining who I was and that I needed to ask her some questions about Sarah. To my surprise, she responded within an hour and agreed to meet me for coffee the next day. Jessica turned out to be a straightforward woman in her early 30s with short red hair and a no-nonsense attitude. We met at a diner near her work, and she did not waste any time getting to the point. "I was wondering when someone would reach out," she said, stirring sugar into her tea. "I thought about contacting Ethan myself when I saw the wedding announcement, but Sarah and I were not close enough for me to feel like it was my place." "What do you mean?" I asked. Jessica pulled out her phone and started scrolling through old photos. "Sarah was seeing someone else while she was with your brother. A guy named Kyle from another marketing firm. They met at a conference about a year and a half ago. She showed me pictures of Sarah and Kyle at various events, a beach vacation, a concert, a fancy restaurant. In every photo, they looked very much like a couple. The timestamps confirmed they were all taken during the time Sarah was supposed to be with Ethan. Are you sure about this? I asked, even though the evidence was right in front of me. Positive. Sarah told everyone at work that she and Kyle were dating. She only mentioned Ethan once or twice, and she called him a friend. I had no idea she was engaged to him until I saw the announcement online. Jessica gave me Kyle's full name and contact information. I thanked her and left the diner with my head spinning. If Sarah had been with Kyle this whole time, there was a very real possibility that the baby was not Ethan's. I found Kyle's LinkedIn profile and sent him a message pretending to be an old friend of Sarah's trying to reconnect. He responded quickly, friendly, and unsuspecting. Through careful questioning, I learned that he and Sarah had broken up about a month ago, right after her wedding fell through. She said she needed to sort things out with her ex-fiancé. Kyle wrote, I understood. First loves are complicated. I hope she is doing okay. So Sarah had been with Kyle, probably got pregnant, and when Kyle would not commit to her, she came back to Ethan with a story designed to trap him into marriage. And the bit about Margaret being part of the deal, that was just another layer of manipulation. I compiled all the evidence, screenshots of conversations with Jessica, photos, Kyle's messages, and a timeline that made it clear Sarah had been living a double life. Then I went to Ethan's apartment and laid it all out for him. My brother's face went through a journey as he processed the information. Denial first, then anger, then a deep, profound hurt. She lied about everything, he whispered. Not just about Kyle, I said gently. I think she lied about the baby being yours too. The timing does not add up if she was with Kyle regularly. We need to talk to her, Ethan said, his voice hardening with resolve. I need to hear her admit it. We called Sarah and asked her to meet us at the same coffee shop. She arrived looking confident, probably thinking Ethan was ready to accept her terms. That confidence faltered when she saw both of us sitting there with serious expressions. Ethan slid the printed evidence across the table. I know about Kyle. Sarah's face went pale. She picked up the papers and flipped through them, her hands starting to shake. You had people spying on me. Answer the question, I said. Were you dating Kyle while you were engaged to Ethan? Sarah set the papers down and looked at Ethan with pleading eyes. It was complicated. Kyle and I had history. But I chose you, Ethan. I was willing to build a life with you. But you also invited my toxic mother back into my life, Ethan said, his voice eerily calm. Why would you do that, Sarah? For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, the truth started to spill out. Your mother contacted me first, Sarah admitted. She found me on social media and reached out. She said she wanted to reconnect with you and your brother, but she needed help. She offered to help pay for the wedding if I could bring you all back together. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. Margaret had orchestrated this entire thing using Sarah's desire for a perfect wedding to manipulate everyone. And the baby, Ethan asked, Is it even mine? Sarah's silence was answer enough. Tears started streaming down her face. It does not matter whose baby it is. You were supposed to take care of me. You were supposed to love me. I did love you, Ethan said quietly. But you made it impossible. He stood up and I followed. We walked out of that coffee shop, leaving Sarah sitting alone at the table. Outside, Ethan took a deep breath of fresh air, and I could see some of the tension leaving his shoulders. That evening, Ethan called Margaret. I sat next to him as he told her exactly what he thought of her manipulation. For the first time in his life, he did not let her guilt trip him or twist his words. He told her they were done, that she would never be part of his life again, and that she needed to accept the consequences of her actions. Margaret tried every trick in her playbook. She cried, she blamed, she played the victim. But Ethan stayed strong. When he finally hung up, he looked exhausted but lighter somehow. 2 days later, Sarah sent Ethan a text message. The baby is Kyle's. I am sorry for everything. I was desperate and scared, and I made terrible choices. I hope someday you can forgive me. Ethan read the message, then blocked her number. He blocked Margaret too. He was done being manipulated by people who claimed to love him but only wanted to use him. The weeks following those confrontations were not easy. Ethan did not bounce back overnight. There were mornings when he could barely get out of bed, when the weight of everything that had happened felt too heavy to carry. He took a week off work and spent most of it at my apartment sleeping on my couch and slowly processing the betrayal. But gradually things started to shift. One day he mentioned wanting to talk to someone professional about everything. I helped him find a therapist who specialized in family trauma and toxic relationships. That first session was hard. He came out looking drained and raw, but he kept going back week after week, and I could see him changing. His therapist helped him understand something crucial: setting boundaries was not cruel or selfish. It was necessary for survival. She taught him to recognize manipulation tactics, to trust his own instincts, and to stop feeling guilty for protecting himself. For someone who had spent his whole life being told he was responsible for other people's happiness, these lessons were revolutionary. About 2 months after everything fell apart, Ethan started going to the gym regularly. Then he joined a rock climbing club that met every Saturday morning at an indoor climbing facility across town. At first, I thought he was just trying to stay busy to distract himself from the pain. But one day he came home from climbing with something I had not seen in months: genuine excitement. "There is this route I have been working on for weeks," he told me, his eyes bright. "Today, I finally made it to the top. Jonah, when I was up there looking down at how far I had climbed, I realized something. I have been climbing out of a dark place for my entire life. What happened with Sarah and Margaret was just another obstacle, but I am still here, I am still climbing." Through the climbing club, he made new friends who knew nothing about his past drama. They knew him as just Ethan, the guy who was determined and supportive, and always willing to belay for one more climb. He started going out with them after sessions, grabbing breakfast or hiking local trails. He was building a life that was wholly his own, free from manipulation and guilt. One Saturday, I went with him to watch him climb. The facility was huge, with walls that stretched up 3 stories high. I watched as Ethan carefully planned his route, his fingers finding holds that looked impossibly small. He moved with focus and determination, and when he reached the top, he looked down at me with the biggest smile I had seen in years. After he climbed down, we sat on a bench and watched other climbers attempt their own routes. "You know what I figured out," Ethan said. "I spent so long trying to please people who were never going to be satisfied. Sarah wanted me to accept abuse from my mother. Margaret wanted me to forget all the pain she caused. Neither of them actually wanted me to be happy. They just wanted me to be compliant." "You are not compliant anymore," I observed. "No," he agreed. "I am not." Our relationship as brothers deepened during this time too. We started having regular dinners together, taking turns cooking meals we found in online recipes. Sometimes we succeeded and created something delicious. Sometimes we burned things or used too much salt. But it did not matter because we were together and we were free. One night, while we were attempting to make homemade pizza, Ethan turned to me and said, "You saved me." Again. I shook my head. "You saved yourself, Ethan. I was just here to support you. But the hard choices, the boundaries you set, the strength it took to walk away from Sarah, that was all you." He smiled a little sadly. "I could not have done it without you, though. You have always been more than a brother. You have been the parent I needed." We hugged then, both of us emotional. Our childhood had been stolen by grief and narcissism, but we had survived it together. And we were going to build better lives together, too. I thought a lot about what this whole experience had taught us. Trust your instincts. When someone shows you red flags, believe them. Sarah had shown us who she was when she went behind Ethan's back to contact Margaret. We should have ended things right then, but we had hoped she would change, that she would understand. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are bridges to healthier relationships. The people who truly love you will respect your limits. They will not push you to reconcile with toxic family members or manipulate you into uncomfortable situations. Real love honors your needs and your history. Family is not just about blood. It is about who shows up for you, who respects you, who wants the best for you, even when it is inconvenient. Margaret was our biological mother, but she had never been our family in any meaningful sense. Sarah had claimed to want a family, but only on her terms. Real family does not come with conditions and ultimatums. I also learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Ethan saying no to Sarah's manipulation, no to Margaret's return, no to a relationship built on lies was not cruel. It was an act of self-preservation and self-respect. For too long, he had believed that love meant sacrifice and suffering. Now he understood that love should feel safe, not suffocating. About 5 months after the canceled wedding, Ethan mentioned that someone from his climbing group had asked him out for coffee. Her name was Amanda, and she was a biology teacher at a local high school. He seemed nervous, but also cautiously optimistic. "I am not rushing into anything," he assured me. "We are just going to talk, get to know each other." "That sounds perfect," I told him. And it did. I did not meet Amanda right away. Ethan wanted to take things slow, to make sure this was real before introducing her to his life in any significant way. But from what he told me, she sounded genuine. She had her own interests, her own friends, and her own healthy boundaries. She did not push him to talk about his past before he was ready. She respected his pace. One evening, about a month into their casual dating, Ethan brought Amanda to a family dinner at my place. She was exactly as he described, warm but not overwhelming, curious but not intrusive. She asked about my work and my hobbies with real interest. When the conversation touched briefly on our difficult past, she did not press for details or try to fix anything. She just listened and accepted what we chose to share. After dinner, while Ethan and Amanda were looking at some photos from a recent climbing trip, I watched my brother laugh at something she said. It was a genuine, unguarded laugh, the kind he used to give before everything got complicated. He looked happy. More importantly, he looked free. As they left that night, Ethan pulled me aside. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For not letting me settle. For showing me what it looks like when someone actually cares about my well-being instead of what I can do for them." I hugged him tight. That is what brothers do. After they left, I stood on my porch watching their car disappear down the street. I thought about how far we had both come from those scared kids living under Margaret's roof, walking on eggshells, and believing we deserved the treatment we received. We had broken that cycle. We had chosen ourselves. The story of Ethan and Sarah could have ended differently. If we had not trusted our instincts, if we had let guilt and manipulation win, Ethan might have married someone who was using him. He might have welcomed Margaret back into his life, allowing her to continue her patterns of abuse. He might have raised a child that was not even his, built on a foundation of lies. But he did not. He chose the harder path, the one that required courage and conviction. He chose himself. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is for the wrong person to walk away. It makes room for the right one to walk in. And this time my brother was ready. He knew what red flags looked like. He knew the difference between love and manipulation. He knew his own worth. That knowledge, earned through pain and struggle, was worth more than any perfect wedding or picture-perfect relationship. It was the foundation for a truly happy life, one built on authenticity and respect, rather than guilt and obligation. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they refused to respect your boundaries? Have you ever dealt with family members who tried to manipulate you through guilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling with similar issues. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself even when it is hard. Thank you for listening to our journey. I hope it reminds you that you deserve relationships built on respect, trust, and genuine love. Take care of yourselves and remember that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary. Until next time.